Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome to Adventures in History. Today's topic is the 1935 Cleveland Indians AL MLB baseball season. Again, the Tribe was playing in the American League, the junior circuit of Major League Baseball. And all home games were played at League Park. Cleveland Municipal Stadium, not a single regular season home game was played there. Although there was one exhibition game that drew national interest, and celebrities from all over the country came, and it was they had a huge, very large attendance for that game. So there was just one baseball game played at the stadium. Now the Tribe had a solid year in 1935. They finished in third place with a record of 82-71, 11 games over 500, winning percentage of .536. 12 games out of first. Very respectable. The first place team was the Detroit Tigers, who were 93-58, winning percentage of .616. Second place, the New York Yankees were 89-60, 3 games out of first. Third place, the Cleveland Indians, 82-71. Fourth place, the Boston Red Sox, 78-75. Fifth place, the Chicago White Sox, 74-78. Sixth place, the Washington Senators, 67-86. Seventh place, the St. Louis Browns, 65-87. And in eighth and last place, another tough year for Connie Mack's Philadelphia Athletics, who were 58-91. The 1935 MLB All-Star Game was played at Cleveland Municipal Stadium, so this was really something. The attendance was 69,381. And Tribe outfielder Joe Vosmick was a starting player. Mel Harder for the Tribe pitched 3 shutout innings and got the save as the American League won the game 4-1. After the season, general manager Billy Evans resigned. This was the end of the Billy Evans era. I'm reading a fine book called My 66 Years in the Big Leagues by Connie Mack, 1950. Opening day 1935 was at League Park, and the Tribe won 7-6 against the St. Louis Browns. Very exciting game. The Tribe scored 2 runs in the bottom of the ninth. And they had a big crowd, 21,500 fans, including pro boxer Max Baer, who was in Cleveland for his fight at Public Hall. In 1935, Emil Bosser became the Tribe head groundskeeper, and he had a long run. And he would the legendary manicure of the field and to favor the Tribe players, depending on whether the Tribe had speed or whatever. On August 15th, against the Philadelphia Athletics, the game was scoreless into the 15th inning, and Earl Averill had a walk-off 2-run home run. Willis Hudlin pitched a 15-inning shutout. Wow. Now, in 1935, League Park, the right field wall had 2 exit gates, and fans could walk across the field after the game, out the gates onto Lexington Avenue, where there were waiting trolleys to take them home. Tribe had a profit in 1934, the year before, $100,000, so no players received salary cuts for 1935. The season opener was on April 16th in St. Louis. And this was the first Tribe radio broadcast of an away game. Standard Oil was the sponsor for Tribe broadcasts. In 1935, the Cincinnati Reds became the first MLB team to play night baseball, and their attendance doubled. Now, the American League, there was an American League MLB All-Star team after the season that traveled to Japan, including Babe Ruth. And the Japanese crowds shouted, were very enthusiastic. They shouted, "Banzai Babe Ruth!" Baseball Magazine recorded this about Babe Ruth in Japan, quote, "No foreign potentate could have evoked a more royal welcome." Mo Berg, the one-time Tribe catcher, was also a part of that delegation. Ford Frick was the new National League president. Now, the first MLB night game was on May 24th, 1935, at Crossley Field in Cincinnati, Ohio. The Cincinnati Reds against the Philadelphia Phillies. U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt threw a switch from the White House 450 miles away, and the lights went on. Very exciting. Reds had 7 games at night in 1935. Now, the attendance for the tribe in 1935 was 397,615, or an average of 5,098, up slightly, up a total of 6,000 from 1934. Now, the coaching staff, Patsy Garrity was back as coach. He was tribe coach from 1933 to 1935, so this was the end of his time in Cleveland. Patsy Garrity. Earl Wolgamott was another coach, and Wolgamott was a tribe coach from 1931 to 1935 as well, so this was also the end of his time in Cleveland. Earl Wolgamott. Walter Johnson started the season as manager and had a record of 46-48. He was tribe manager from 1933 to 1935. He was in conflict with two players, specifically Glenn Myatt and Willie Cam, whom he made the decision to have released on May 23rd. This became very controversial. Johnson was fired on August 4th. So this was the end of Walter Johnson's time as manager. In fact, the end of his time in baseball. He did not manage again. Willie Cam was signed as a scout after he was released. The following year, Walter Johnson said this in 1936, quote, "I am happy out here. I was raised on a farm and never have gotten the dirt out of my shoes. I guess I'll always be a country boy." He was talking from his home, a 553-acre farm near Germantown, Maryland, which he had bought in January of 1935. He continued, quote, "What a relief to get back to the country, to get away from it all." Johnson had a dairy operation, 100 gallons of milk per day that he shipped to Washington, D.C. He also had chickens, turkeys, pheasants, geese, ducks, and dogs. His son Eddie said this, quote, "Baseball was a living for him. A hunter or a farmer, that's where he really liked to be. He was the type of fellow that just couldn't wait to get into some old clothes and get a dog. Fame and people bugging him and everything, why, he certainly never gloried in that." Johnson's biographer, Henry W. Thomas, wrote, quote, "His favorite pastime, roaming the countryside with his purebred English hounds, hunting fox and raccoons." 1936, Johnson was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Also in 1936, Johnson supported, there was a debate on the whole legend whether George Washington had actually thrown a silver dollar across the Rappahannock River, and Johnson said he thought it was very possible. So the decision was made on February 22nd, 1936, George Washington's birthday. Walter Johnson went to the banks of the Rappahannock River, and 8,000 spectators watched him accomplish this feat. So he himself was able to throw a silver dollar across the Rappahannock River, which proved that the legend was possible, that Washington throwing the coin across the river. And this event was carried live on CBS radio. Also in 1936, his son Walter Johnson Jr. was in the minor leagues in the Philadelphia athletic system, and continued in the minor leagues until 1939. His son Eddie went to the University of Maryland and hit .400 and also had playing time in the minor leagues. By 1937, Johnson was the spokesperson and promotional director for Dr. Pepper, the soft drink company, and he got $1,000 in stock and a $5,000 salary. They also gave him a fire engine red Oldsmobile with the Dr. Pepper logo on the car. By 1938, he was the manager of the Dr. Pepper semi-pro baseball team, which included stars from the 1937 NFL champions, Washington Redskins, Cliff Battles, Riley Smith, and Charlie Malone. Also his son Eddie. In 1939, Johnson was elected president of the National Association of Professional Baseball Players, an organization to help needy ex-ball players. In 1939, Johnson became the radio broadcaster for the Washington Nationals, or the Washington Senators. In 1939, he was inducted in the Hall of Fame, and he had this to say, quote, "I am glad I was able to do enough to merit an honor of this magnitude." Of course, Johnson won more than 400 games, the second behind Cy Young all time. In 1940, Johnson ran for U.S. Congress. He introduced Wendell Willkie, the Republican presidential nominee in Coffeyville, Kansas. And he said this, quote, "I am proud of my old hometown and never more proud to be present today to introduce the next president of the United States." And Wendell Willkie said this, quote, "You were my boyhood hero when I lived in Coffeyville, and you are my hero now. I hope you will be throwing them out in Congress." Ty Cobb endorsed Johnson in his bid for U.S. Congress, and Ty Cobb said this, quote, I have known Walter Johnson for 35 years and have had every opportunity to size him up. I have never known Walter to take shortcuts or do a cheap thing. He never once deviated from the right. He is the kind of man who will keep his word to his supporters. I think so highly of the man's integrity that I can't resist recommending him to the people of the district. Of course, now in the election, Johnson lost, and Wendell Willkie lost as well. And Franklin D. Roosevelt was elected again. On May 28, 1941, Johnson threw a pitch to break a radio beam which turned on the lights at the first night game at Griffin Stadium in Washington for the first MLB night game in Washington, D.C. In 1942, at Yankee Stadium on August 23rd, between games of a doubleheader, Walter Johnson pitched to Babe Ruth. For old time's sake, Billy Evans, the former Tribe GM, was the umpire, and Ruth hit two home runs off of Johnson, who grooves the pitches because he knew the crowd wanted to see Ruth hit some home runs. He threw 20 pitches, and after the first home run, the New York Times recorded, quote, "No cheer ever to greet any of the 714 home runs Ruth hit matched the mighty roar as Ruth swung." So Babe Ruth and Walter Johnson walked off the field, and Ruth said this, quote, "We walked along gabbing and signing autographs, but there was a kind of sadness in both of us. Walter had been the greatest pitcher in the league. I had been the greatest slugger, but he was no longer a part of the game, and the same was true for me." In 1946, Johnson had severe health trouble, a cerebral hemorrhage and a brain tumor, and was in the hospital and dying. The Washington Nationals owner, Clark Griffin, visited every day and brought a rose every day. And he said this, quote, "I took the earth from the pitcher's box and made a special rose garden of it. I felt that anything enriched by Walter's sweat was semi-sacred. These roses are from that bed." Johnson listened intently to the 1946 World Series, and he died on December 10th, 1946. Daisy Barnwell Jones wrote this, quote, "Mr. Johnson died like he lived, with quiet dignity. Heaven and earth stood in awesome silence at his passing. As gentle as a feather wafted out the window, and just as silently his soul took flight." Clark Griffith, Washington Nationals or Senators owner, wrote, quote, "It's hard to believe Walter is gone. He was so strong, so uncomplaining. We'll never see his like again." Sports writer Damon Runyon also died the same day, and one editorialist wrote this, quote, "Life is a river, and change is sure, but the passing of men like Damon Runyon and Walter Johnson tinges the fact with melancholy. Philosophy of whatever brand cannot dissemble the truth that it isn't the same United States as it was on Monday." For his funeral, Roger Peckinpah, former Cleveland Nap and Indian and Cleveland manager, was one of the pallbearers. Walter Johnson. Johnson was replaced by Steve O'Neill, who started the year as a coach. And O'Neill played for the Cleveland Naps and the Cleveland Indians between 1911 and 1923. He was tribe manager between 1935 and 1937. He was hired on August 6th, and the tribe improved under his leadership, and their record was 36-23 for the rest of the year. Of course, he had been the tribe catcher in 1920 when they won the World Series. And as Toledo Mud Hens manager in the minor leagues, O'Neill had managed Monty Pearson, Bad News Hale, Frankie Pytlak, and Hal Trotsky, who were on the team in 1935. Steve O'Neill. Now the regular lineup, Eddie Phillips was the catcher. Phillips batted .273 with 60 hits. He scored 18 runs, had 16 doubles, a triple, a home run, 41 RBIs, 15 walks in 70 games. Phillips was born in 1901 in Worcester, Massachusetts, and died in 1968 in Buffalo, New York at age 66. For his career, he hit .237 with 14 home runs and 126 RBIs. Phillips played for the Boston Braves, Detroit Tigers, Pittsburgh Pirates, New York Yankees, Washington Senators, and Cleveland Indians between 1924 and 1935. He won a World Series title in 1932 with the Yankees. For his career, he had 236 hits. He scored 82 runs, 54 doubles, 6 triples in 312 games. In the minor leagues, Phillips played for the Hagerstown Owls, and he was on the Boston College Eagles baseball team. Eddie Phillips. Hal Trotsky was at first base for the Tribe. Trotsky batted .271 with 171 hits, 84 runs scored, 33 doubles, 7 triples, 26 home runs, 113 RBIs. Wow. A stolen base, 46 walks in 154 games. Trotsky was with Cleveland from 1933 to 1941. In the off-season, Trotsky was involved in ice skating and wood chopping to stay in shape. The Cleveland Plain Dealer wrote this, quote, Hal Trotsky is still an unspoiled kid who can't quite believe he's a big leaguer. He speaks almost reverently of the older heads in the game. He also expressed admiration for Walter Johnson as a manager and a man. Ed Macaulay of the Cleveland News wrote, quote, Hal Trotsky was and is a big kid with a clean heart, fully worthy of every success that comes his way. The polite shyness of those early days is gone, of course. Trotsky speaks his mind now, loud and confidently. He is the team's slowest poker player and one of its most successful. But when such quick shufflers as Thornton Lee try to make him hurry his betting or his draw, he tells them in language strong and simple what they can do about it. Hal Trotsky. Bose Berger was at second base. Berger batted .258 with 119 hits, 27 doubles, 5 triples, 5 home runs, 43 RBIs, 7 stolen bases, 34 walks in 124 games. Berger was with Cleveland in 1932 and from 1935 to 1936. In 1932, he was an NCAA men's basketball consensus All-American, along with John Wooden, who became, of course, famous coach with UCLA, and Berger played for the Maryland Terrapins basketball team. Bose Berger. Bill Knickerbocker was the shortstop. Knickerbocker batted .298 with 161 hits. Really good. 34 doubles, 5 triples, 55 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 27 walks in 132 games. And Knickerbocker was with Cleveland from 1933 to 1936. Bill Knickerbocker. Odell Bad News Hale was at third base. Hale batted .304 with 179 hits. Wow. 80 runs scored, 37 doubles, 11 triples, 16 home runs, 101 RBIs. Wow. 15 stolen bases, 52 walks in 150 games. Hale was with Cleveland in 1931 and from 1933 to 1940. Odell Bad News Hale. Now, in left field, Joe Vosmick was in left field. Vosmick was with Cleveland from 1930 to 1936. He had an outstanding year in 1935. He batted .348. Golly gee whiz, 216 hits. Wow, 47 doubles, 20 triples, 10 home runs, 110 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 59 walks in 152 games. Vosmick finished second in the American League batting race behind Washington's Buddy Meyer, who hit .349. And of course, Vosmick was an all-star and played in that amazing game at the stadium and had a hit. Joe Vosmick. Earl Averill was in center field. Averill batted .288 with 162 hits, 109 runs scored, 34 doubles, 13 triples, 19 home runs, 79 RBIs, 8 stolen bases, 70 walks in 140 games. Averill was with Cleveland from 1929 to 1939. On July 4th, Averill was lighting firecrackers with his children, and he lit one and walked away, and it didn't explode, so he went over and picked it up, and then it exploded in his hand. And he had some pretty bad injuries and missed 6 weeks, and this really hurt the team and really hurt his season. In the off-season, Averill had traveled to Japan with that American League MLB All-Star group, which included Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. Earl Averill. Bruce Campbell was in right field. Campbell batted .325, 100 hits, 56 runs scored, 26 doubles, 3 triples, 7 home runs, 54 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 31 walks in 80 games. Campbell was born in 1909 in Chicago, Illinois, and died in 1995 in Fort Myers Beach, Florida, at age 85. For his career, he hit .290 with 106 home runs and 766 RBIs. Campbell played for the Chicago White Sox, St. Louis Browns, Cleveland Indians, Detroit Tigers, and Washington Senators between 1930 and 1942. On July 2, 1936, Campbell was 7 for 7 in a doubleheader playing for the Tribe against the St. Louis Browns. The first game he was 6 for 6 with 5 RBIs, and the second game 1 for 1 and then left the game. 1940, he played for Detroit and helped them win an American League title. He played all 7 games of the World Series in 1940, hit .360, 4 runs scored, 5 RBIs, and a home run. In 1935, during the season, he contracted spinal meningitis, and it was life-threatening. The doctor said he had a 50-50 chance of survival. However, he did recover. In 1936, he received the Most Courageous Athlete of the Year award. In the Second World War, Campbell was in the U.S. Army Air Corps for 38 months. In 1946, he was in the minor leagues, where he played in the minors for the Buffalo Bisons and Minneapolis Millers. Bruce Campbell. Now, the bench players included Milt Galatzer, who was an outfielder. Galatzer batted .301 with 78 hits. 45 runs scored, 9 doubles, 3 triples, 19 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, 35 walks in 93 games. And Galatzer was with Cleveland from 1933 to 1936. Milt Galatzer. Roy Hughes was a middle infielder. They called him Sage. Hughes batted .293 with 78 hits. He scored 40 runs, had 15 doubles, 3 triples, 14 RBIs, 13 stolen bases, 18 walks in 82 games. Hughes was born in 1911 in Cincinnati, Ohio, and died in 1995 in Asheville, North Carolina at age 84. For his career, he batted .273 with 5 home runs and 205 RBIs. Hughes played for the Cleveland Indians, St. Louis Browns, Philadelphia Phillies, and Chicago Cubs between 1935 and 1946, so he was a rookie in 1935. In 1945, he helped the Cubs win a National League title and was the starting shortstop for 6 games of the World Series. In Game 7, he had a single in the World Series. He was the last Cub to have a hit in a World Series until 2016, of course, when the Cubs and Tribe battled each other. He was a second baseman, third baseman, shortstop. For his career, Hughes had 705 hits, 105 doubles, 27 triples. In the minor leagues, Hughes played for the Columbus Redbirds, Lakeland Pilots, Minneapolis Millers, Montreal Royals, Newark Bears, New Orleans Pelicans, Oakland Oaks, and Zanesville Grays. Roy Hughes. Ab Wright was another outfielder. His given name was Albert Ohm. They called him Ab. He hit .238 with 38 hits. He scored 17 runs, 11 doubles, a triple, 2 home runs, 18 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 10 walks in 67 games. Wright was born in 1905 in Turtleton, Oklahoma, and died in 1995 in Muskogee, Oklahoma. And he would have been 90 years old. For his career, he batted .248 with 9 home runs and 53 RBIs. Wright played for the Cleveland Indians in 1935 and the Boston Braves in 1944. He went to college at Oklahoma State. Wright played in the NFL in 1930 for the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets. Wow. The minor leagues, he played for the Dayton Aviators, Joplin Miners, Shawnee Robins, Muskogee Chiefs, Minneapolis Millers, Des Moines Demons, the Greensboro Patricks, the Danville Veterans, Little Rock Travelers, Baltimore Orioles, Montreal Royals, Buffalo Bisons, and the Oklahoma City Indians. Ab Wright. Frankie Pytlak was a spare catcher. Pytlak batted .295 with 44 hits. He scored 14 runs, had 6 doubles, a triple, a home run, 12 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 11 walks in 55 games. And Pytlak was with Cleveland from 1932 to 1940. Frankie Pytlak. Bill Brenzel was a spare catcher. Brenzel batted .218 with 31 hits. He scored 12 runs, had 5 doubles, a triple, 14 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 6 walks in 52 games. Brenzel was with Cleveland from 1934 to 1935, and this was the end of his MLB career. Bill Brenzel. Ralph Weingarner was a utility player. Weingarner batted .310 with 26 hits. He scored 11 runs, had 4 doubles, a triple, 3 home runs, 17 RBIs, a stolen base, 9 walks in 65 games. Weingarner was a pinch hitter, left fielder, first baseman, and third baseman. He also did some pitching. Was 2-2 with an ERA of 5.75, 25 games, 4 starts, so mostly a relief pitcher. 2 complete games, 67 and a third innings pitched, and 41 strikeouts. Weingarner was with Cleveland in 1930, 1932, and from 1934 to 1936. Ralph Weingarner. Glenn Myatt was a spare catcher. Myatt batted .083 with 3 hits and 36 at-bats. He scored a run, had a double, 2 home runs, 4 walks in 10 games. Myatt was with Cleveland from 1923 to 1935, so this was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1936, and of course, on May 23rd, he was released by the Tribe after his very unfortunate conflict with Walter Johnson. He'd given Cleveland some very fine years. Glenn Myatt. Kit Carson played some outfield. Carson batted .227 with 5 hits and 22 at-bats. He scored a run, had a double, an RBI, 2 walks in 16 games. Carson was with Cleveland in 1934 and 1935, and this was the end of his MLB career. Kit Carson. Bob Garbark was another catcher. Garbark batted .333 with 6 hits and 18 at-bats. He scored 4 runs, had a double, 4 RBIs, 5 walks in 6 games. Garbark was with Cleveland in 1934 and 1935. So this was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1945. Bob Garbark. Willie Cam played some third base. Cam batted .333 with 6 hits and 18 at-bats. He scored 2 runs, had an RBI in 6 games. Cam was with Cleveland from 1931 to 1935. This was the end of his MLB career. He was released on May 23rd by the Tribe after his conflict with Walter Johnson. After that, he was signed as a Tribe scout. Cam wrote a farewell message to the team, quote, "Gang, I'd like to be with you in your drive for the pennant, but the fortunes of war have willed otherwise. You're a great bunch of fellows, a credit to any city. In fact, the fans of Cleveland should be, and I believe are justly proud of you. I have no animosity against anyone connected with the Cleveland Ball Club, and while I will not be here in person, remember I'll be with you in spirit." Willie Cam had given Cleveland some fine years. Willie Cam. Greek George was another catcher. His given name was Charles Peter. He got in 2 games but did not bat. George was born in 1912 in Waycross, California, and died in 1999 in Metairie, Louisiana at age 86. For his career, he batted .177 with 24 RBIs. George played for the Cleveland Indians, Brooklyn Dodgers, Chicago Cubs, and Philadelphia Athletics between 1935 and 1945. So he was a rookie in 1935. He went to college at Oglethorpe University and played on the Stormy Petrels baseball team. In 1945, he punched an umpire and was suspended, and that was the end of his MLB career. In the minor leagues, George played for the Albany Senators, Americus Rebels, Birmingham Barons, Charleston Rebels, Chattanooga Lookouts, Kansas City Blues, Milwaukee Brewers, Minneapolis Millers, Nashville Vols, the Newark Bears, Portsmouth Cubs, Richmond Colts, Tifton Blue Sox, and Toronto Maple Leafs. Greek George. Now, the pitching staff was anchored by the ace, Mel Harder, who had an outstanding year. He was 22-11 with an ERA of 3.29, 42 games, 35 starts, 17 complete games, 4 shutouts, 2 saves, 287 and a third innings pitched, and 95 strikeouts. As a hitter, Harder batted .206 with 21 hits. He scored 11 runs, had a double, 2 home runs, 10 RBIs, walked twice, and struck out 29 times. Harder was a player for the Tribe from 1928 to 1947 and a Tribe coach from 1948 to 1963. Mel Harder. Willis Hudlin was second in the rotation. Hudlin was 15-11 with an ERA of 3.69, 36 games, 29 starts, 14 complete games, 3 shutouts, 5 saves, 231 and a third innings pitched, and 45 strikeouts. Hudlin batted .279 with 24 hits. He scored 10 runs, had 7 doubles, a home run, 8 RBIs, 6 walks, struck out 19 times in 37 games. And Hudlin was with Cleveland from 1926 to 1940. Willis Hudlin. Monty Pearson was also in the rotation. Pearson was 8-13 with an ERA of 4.91, 30 games, 24 starts, 10 complete games, a shutout, 181 and 2/3 innings pitched, and 90 strikeouts. Pearson batted .177 with 11 hits. He scored 8 runs, had 4 doubles, 6 RBIs, a stolen base, and 7 walks. Pearson was with Cleveland from 1932 to 1935, so this was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1941. Monty Pearson. Thornton Lee was 7-10 with an ERA of 4.04, 32 games, 20 starts, 8 complete games, a shutout, a save, 180 and 2/3 innings pitched, and 81 strikeouts. Lee batted .197 with 12 hits. He scored 6 runs, had 2 doubles, 7 RBIs, 3 walks, and he struck out 17 times. Lee was with Cleveland from 1933 to 1936. Thornton Lee. Oral Hildebrand was 9-8 with an ERA of 3.94, 34 games, 20 starts, 8 complete games, 5 saves, 171 and a third innings pitched, and 49 strikeouts. Hildebrand batted .164 with 9 hits. He scored 9 runs, had a double, a triple, 4 RBIs, and walked twice. Hildebrand was with Cleveland from 1931 to 1936. Oral Hildebrand. Lloyd Brown was 8-7 with an ERA of 3.61. 42 games, 8 starts, so he was primarily a relief pitcher. 4 complete games, 2 shutouts, 4 saves, 122 innings pitched, and 45 strikeouts. Brown batted .108 with 4 hits and 37 at-bats. He scored 3 runs, had a double, a triple, 2 RBIs, 2 walks, and struck out 16 times. Brown was with Cleveland from 1934 to 1937. Lloyd Brown. Lefty Stewart was 6-6 with an ERA of 5.44. 24 games, 10 starts, 2 complete games, 2 saves, 91 innings pitched, and 24 strikeouts. Stewart batted .200 with 6 hits. He scored 2 runs, had 2 RBIs, a walk, and struck out 7 times. He was born in 1900 in Spartan, Tennessee, and died in 1974 in Knoxville, Tennessee at age 74. For his career, Stewart was 101 and 98. Very good, with an ERA of 4.19 and 503 strikeouts. Stewart pitched for the Detroit Tigers, St. Louis Browns, Washington Senators, and Cleveland Indians from 1921 to 1935, so this was the end of his MLB career. He won an American League title in 1933 with the Washington Senators. His given name was Walter Cleveland, although they called him Lefty. In 1927, he gave up one of Babe Ruth's record 60 home runs. Stewart pitched in the minor leagues for the San Antonio Bears, the New Haven Indians, Syracuse Stars, Birmingham Barons, Toronto Maple Leafs, Mission Reds, and Memphis Chickasaws and Bradenton Growers. Lefty Stewart. Clinton Brown was 4-3 with an ERA of 5.14. 23 games, 5 starts, a complete game, 2 saves, 49 innings pitched, and 20 strikeouts. Brown batted .200 with 2 hits and 10 at-bats. He scored a run and walked twice. Brown was with Cleveland from 1928 to 1935 and from 1941 to 1942 and is buried at Lakewood Cemetery in Rocky River, Ohio. In the off-season, he played on the American League MLB All-Star team in Japan. Clint Brown. Denny Galehouse was 1-0 with an ERA of 9.00. 5 games, a start, a complete game, 13 innings pitched, and 8 strikeouts. Galehouse batted .250 with 1 hit and 4 at-bats and struck out once. He was with Cleveland from 1934 to 1938. Denny Galehouse. And finally, Belv Bean had no decisions and an ERA of 9.00. 1 game, 1 innings pitched, and 1 earned run allowed. He did not bat. Bean was with Cleveland from 1930 to 1931 and from 1933 to 1935, and this was the end of his MLB career. Belv Bean. After the regular season, the World Series was played. The Detroit Tigers, American League champions, defeated the Chicago Cubs, the National League champions, 4-2. Hall of Famers for the Tigers included Mickey Cochran, Charlie Gehringer, Goose Goslin, Hank Greenberg. And for the Cubs, Gabby Hartnett, Billy Herman, Chuck Klein, and Freddie Lindstrom. And also the umpire Bill McGowan was in the Hall of Fame. The Ford Motor Company paid $100,000 for the advertising rights on NBC Radio. And for CBS, Jack Graney of the Cleveland broadcaster and former player also broadcast the games on the World Series on the radio. The Tigers' share for winning the World Series was $6,100 per player, and for the Cubs, $4,198 per player. So that's the story of the 1935 Cleveland Indians. They had a good year. They had a strong year, and a year to be proud of. God bless the fellows who played for the Cleveland Indians in 1935, and everyone else associated with the team, including the fans, especially the Civil War veterans, Spanish-American War veterans, and First World War veterans. Captains of the Cuyahoga, lovers of Lake Erie, Terminal Tower Power, fans of the Free Stamp Statue and the Fountain of Eternal Life, Severance Hall stalwarts, Euclid Avenue electricity, Cleveland Museum of Art enthusiasts, Christmas Story House happy people, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum Rebels, First Energy Stadium friends, Progressive Field pals, Quicken Loans arena enthusiasts, Museum of Contemporary Art enthusiasts. Tribe, Browns, Cavs, Monsters, and Gladiators rule. Cleveland, City of Champions. Cleveland is the best location in the nation on the north coast of America. New York is the Big Apple. Cleveland is a plum. Before you know it, it'll be opening day 2019. Go Tribe. This is our year. You might consider checking out our website at Adventures in History with Peter J. Ray at peterjray.com. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. God bless you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.